Hey NBA2K fans, in this video we're going to talk about what bird years are in NBA2K, so you'll know how to use your bird rights exception to the salary cap in MyLeague and MyGM files, and kind of how it works. Alright, if you're new to the channel, I am Coach 2K. While you're here, subscribe and click the bell to get notified whenever I upload anything new so you don't miss a single NBA2K video I put out. And also follow my MyLeague series I put on the channel while you're here. Got one on fictional MyLeague and a My Career in a MyLeague. Both of them are a lot of fun. I'll put a link up in the left hand corner to those videos if you want to click that little information circle to find links to the start of those series. Alright, so let's get started and talk about one of the most popular exceptions to the cap, which is the bird rights exception. Now, if you haven't watched my salary cap 101 video, I talk about how the salary cap works in the NBA and how to use the salary cap table. And in it, we briefly discussed that there's these things called exceptions to the cap. And exceptions to the cap are listed on the left-hand side of this instruction screen. And so we're going to go into a little bit more detail about the first three items there, which are the bird rights exception, the early bird exception, and the non-bird exception. So when you're negotiating contracts with veteran players in the league, you'll know how to apply this to your MyLeague and MyGM files in terms of signing your own players to amounts above the cap because of this exception. Let's start by discussing what a bird year is. And a bird year is just the amount of time you spent with the same team. So here we have a rookie, DeAndre Ayton, who was drafted in 2018. And in his case, you see that the bird year says 0. And that's because he hasn't played any games with the team that drafted him, which in this case is the Suns. So right now he has 0 bird years, and he has no bird rights, so to speak. So a bird year is how many years you spent with the same team. So in the prior draft in 2017, Jason Tatum was drafted by the Celtics, and so he's played one season with the Celtics in this file, and so he has 1 bird year. The year before, in the 2016 draft, Ben Simmons was drafted in the 2016 draft by the Sixers, and so he's completed his second year in the file here, and so he has 2 bird years. So you can see here, as you play with the same team, you accumulate your bird years. Alright, so just kind of moving along here, showing you how bird years accumulate. Karl Anthony Towns was drafted in 2015, and he's played 3 years with the Timberwolves, so he's accumulated 3 bird years by playing with the same team. And you can see in 2018 that's his 4th season with the Timberwolves. So if he stayed another season, it'd be 4 bird years. But between the 3rd and 4th season, he signed a contract extension. You can see his contract exploded to a huge amount. And so the best time to sign these rookies, the contract extensions, is in the off season between their 3rd and 4th year. And I did a video on how to do that in NBA2K, and I'll put a link up in the corner that talks about rookie contract extensions. While I showed how rookies are accumulating their bird years, remember that any veteran player in the league, whether they're a rookie or not, acquires bird years. So here, Dirk Nowitzki has been playing with the same team his whole career. He has 20 bird years accumulated because he's been playing all those years with the same team. The other thing I wanted to point out when we're talking about bird years, looking inside of NBA 2K at every player, just keep in mind that the bird years sometimes aren't always correct. So an example is Trae Young here, who was drafted in 2018, and inside the file hasn't even played a single game with the Hawks yet. It says he has 7 bird years. So the number of bird years he has is 0, and so it's just not right. Now, there's no way to edit it in this version of NBA 2K. Maybe they'll let us edit it in future versions, but I just wanted to make it, let you know that, occasionally it's not 100% accurate. So just, you got to be a little forgiving sometimes when you're playing a game. It's not the real life contract. Also, as far as the underlying contracts are concerned, to get 3 bird years, you could have 3 one-year contracts. You could have 1 3-year contract. You know, to get 11 bird years here for Conley and back with Nowitzki too with his 20 bird years. Obviously, those were multiple contracts. So the contract isn't what determines the bird years. Bird years are just the number of years you spent with that team. And I guess another thing to mention about bird rights before we talk about what they mean in terms of signing contracts is that bird rights can be traded. So like in the case of Tobias Harris here, I don't know if his bird years are actually correct. That's 7 years of bird years. And if you go into his stats, you can see he's played for multiple teams. And my guess is he has 7 bird years because he's been traded all those times and hasn't entered into free agency. And one of the reasons these bird years transfer via trade is because they don't want players to like get 2 bird years and then before they can get their 3rd bird year get traded away and those kind of things. So just keep in mind that via trade, bird years can possibly carry over. And so while it might not be exactly perfect in 2K, that might be why somebody has more bird years than the number of years they've been with one team. Okay, so once you know the number of bird years a player has accumulated, that tells you what that player's bird rights are in terms of negotiating a contract with that player, even if it would put you over the cap. Because you'll notice on this instruction screen that exceptions to the cap, the very first 3 are related to bird years. And so you have the bird rights exception, you have the early bird exception, and the non-bird exception. So you can see that in terms of bird years, the magic number is 3. So once you get above 3, you don't get any extra bonus for that. So like Dirk Nowitzki, even though he has 20 years with the same team, he doesn't get any bonus because he's got at least 3. That would allow them the largest exception to the cap. All right, so what does this mean in terms of contracts and the salary cap? Well, what it means is that even if you didn't have cap space, if you had a player that had 1, 2, or 3 bird years, then you could re-sign that player even if it puts you over the cap, but only up to certain limits. For a non-bird exception player, that's a player that has 1 bird year, that limit's 120% of their contract. So if a player had a 1-year deal at $10 million and then you're going to sign him to another 1-year deal, that means they could sign up to $12 million for that particular year, even if that puts you over the cap. For a player with 2 bird years, then they'd get the early bird exception, which means you could sign that player up to 175% of their contract, even if it puts you over the cap. And for a player that has full bird rights, which is 3 bird years, you could sign that player to a max contract, even if it puts you over your salary cap. Now, just keep in mind that even though bird rights are an exception to the cap, and they allow you to sign players even if you don't have the cap room to do it, that payroll still matters in a couple ways. The first way is that if you sign players to a bunch of large long-term contracts, that reduces your cap flexibility in the future to maybe work with other players that you want to work with. The other thing is that you still have the luxury tax threshold to worry about, and if your total payroll exceeds the luxury tax threshold, then you got to pay luxury tax, which in a MyLeague really doesn't matter because they don't really look at profitability there. But in a MyGM, it's a balance sheet item, which means that they calculate the luxury tax, and that could affect how you're doing in your MyGM files. Okay, so that's what bird years are, how bird rights work, and how they are exceptions to the cap. So I hope that helps you understand what bird years are when you're playing your MyLeague and MyGM files. And you got any questions, put them down in the comments. And be sure to check out my other NBA2K videos while you're here, including my MyLeague series. I'll put a link up in the corner to my fictional MyLeague and my fictional My Career in a MyLeague series. You can check those out. In the meantime, I'm Coach 2K. I'll see you on the court in the next video. Thanks for watching.